What is up with the Indian accent?
Bro, can you please pass my water bottle?
What?
My water bottle?
Okay, bro. Here's a water bottle.
Here's how to do a perfect Indian accent. First, pronounce the W as if it were a mixture of V and W. For example, the word weather becomes weather, and the final result would be something like, I think the weather is good today. I think it's perfect.
Dude, do your Indian accent.
What do you mean, like this one?
No, like an Indian accent.
I don't know what you're talking about. This is also an Indian accent.
No, dude, like a thicker Indian accent.
What do you want from me? I'm giving you an Indian accent.
You know what I mean, like an Indian accent.
Bro, I am giving you an Indian accent.
Stop playing games with me, bro. Do your Indian accent.
This is also an Indian accent.
No, like the really funny one, man.
Thank you, come again.
You know what bothers me the most about Indian stereotypes in TV and movies? It's always like, oh yeah, the taxi driver in Deadpool with a really bad fake accent. Oh, the gas station clerk, haha.
As an Indian person, were you aware that foreigners often make fun of the Indian English accent?
Yeah, I don't know why. It's basically racism.
When you have waited 7 years to hear this live, but you get the Indian version instead.
Now, I'd be lying if I said that I didn't find that clip at the Weeknd concert funny. It's not necessarily because of the Indian accent, which I'll get into later, but it's more the passion and the energy that the guy was singing with. Like, he was going in. But honestly, if I was at a Weeknd concert but they played Crew Love instead, then I'd be doing the same thing. But I do have to point out that I'm pretty sure that TikTok is fake. I heard the exact same audio in another TikTok but from a completely different side of the stadium. I mean, unless there's two loud guys who know the words to the Weeknd's Die For You and they both sing the song in the wrong pitch, then I'm willing to say that that video is edited. But one thing for sure is that there is a very loud Indian with a very clear and distinct Indian accent, which the comments seem to find annoying, and that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. Now, it was actually a comment that I received on one of my videos which sparked the idea for this one, and it was basically from a guy asking me to help him do a voiceover for his YouTube channel because he's planning on making videos about computer science, and he said that he was afraid of people clicking off the video because of his accent. And this was from an Indian guy, so I'm assuming he would have an Indian accent, and he was worried that people wouldn't watch his videos because of the Indian accent. Now, even though this is a relatively small comment, I had multiple reactions to this. First of all, it's the fact that this guy tried to insinuate that my voice sounds like AI by asking what bot I use. And the thing is, that's not even the first time that someone has commented on one of my videos saying that my voice sounds like AI. I mean, I didn't realize my voice was that monotone and robot-like. Like, this is literally how I speak in real life. But on the other hand, my business brain kicked in and I was thinking, this could be a potential business opportunity. So listen, if the guy who made this comment or any of you guys need me to do a voiceover for whatever project you have, within reason, then DM me on Instagram at TheBrownExperience1 and we can start negotiating prices. Also, even if you don't need a voiceover, then you should follow me on Instagram anyway, because yeah, I'm trying to get in my influencer bag and get flown out to Dubai. But also follow me on the gram because I might be dropping some content on there. I know a lot of you might not be able to watch a full-on video essay, so stay tuned because I might be dropping some reels from the videos on there so that your TikTok brains can cope. But the third reaction to this guy's comment was one of empathy. Now listen, I'm not your savior and I'm not morally superior, but I actually felt bad for this guy because clearly he feels as though his Indian accent is going to hinder his ability to do well on YouTube. And he feels as though people aren't going to take his stuff seriously just because of the way he speaks. And I think that's due to a number of reasons, which I'm going to talk about in this video. Now, I already know that another creator called Altfinity made a video about Indian accents and dialects and why certain accents sound the way they do. And this is an amazing video, like genuinely top 10 videos I've watched on YouTube this year. And it's the kind of content that I'm trying to make once I hit 100k and do a face reveal and go out in public and do in real life interviews. So if you want to see something like that, then subscribe so we can make that process a bit faster. But anyway, his video also helped spark this video idea, but I want to look at the Indian accent from a different perspective and do a deep dive on how the Indian accent has been perceived in the West and whether or not that's impacted those in the diaspora. And to begin, I think you have have to look at some of the origins of the Indian accent becoming known in the West. And one of the first times that there was any form of recognition of the Indian accent was actually during the British colonial era, where terms like Babu English or Butler English were first used to describe how Indians spoke during colonial times. Now obviously Butler English refers to the Indian being a servant in a European household and being in an occupational role, and that term in and of itself is obviously used to mock Indians working these roles. And throughout British history, Indian accents became more and more recognised and therefore more mocked as more Indians began to immigrate into the UK from the post-war times up until the 1970s, and Indian accents and characters were being mocked in literature and TV shows. There's this one TV show in particular called It Ain't Half Hot Mum, which is a British sitcom from 1974 which attracted between 15 to 17 million viewers each week, which in the UK is massive. And this show had two characters in particular who were both Indian, named Ram Rangi and Chaiwala Muhammad, who both had very exaggerated Indian accents, obviously used for comedic effect. Now I would play clips from this show, but I have a feeling that they get copyrighted. But if you just search up this show on YouTube and search up the characters, then you'll see the scenes. And I know that this show is from the 1970s, but if you watch the clips, then you'll know that this show would definitely not run in 2024. And it's not necessarily because of the Indian accents, because to be fair, the white actor Michael Bates, who plays the character Ram, he can actually speak Hindi and Urdu, so clearly he can actually do an accent. So that's not necessarily the reason why this show gets called racist in modern times, but it's more so the stereotyping and clearly dehumanizing depiction of Indians done by these white actors. But that's not really surprising given the context of the show being a post-World War II sitcom. So in the UK, Indians' accents were easily recognizable and could easily be seen as a stereotype or caricature just because of how much material there was out there and how known the British were to Indians. But in North America, it seems like the Indian accent wasn't as recognizable, or it wasn't an accent that could be mocked as easily. Even this one thread on r/Ask an American basically said that it was just another accent like all the other ones. But that was until 1990, when a character from a certain animated TV show emerged, and that was none other than the convenience store running Indian immigrant Apu. Now I feel like I don't need to say too much about Apu because people have talked extensively about this character for years, and he is pretty much the reason why the Indian accent is stereotyped in the way that it is through his famous tagline, "Thank you, come again." But I think the most striking thing about Apu is that for 30 years he was played by the white actor Hank Azaria. I mean, they say that us Browns are taking all the jobs, but this is a job that was snatched from one of our own before we even knew it. Now obviously I'm not saying that Apu being voiced by an Indian actor would make his character any more acceptable, because his character had issues outside of the accent like the portrayal of arranged marriage, family dynamics and religion. But the fact that a white actor was able to set the standard for how Indians would be mocked for years to come just makes it worse for some reason. Like surely it could have been one of our own at least. And a lot of people still feel the impact of Apu to this day. Now obviously The Simpsons dropped stateside, but even people in the UK felt the impact. I mean, me personally, I think I've heard "Thank you, come again" on a few occasions, which makes no sense at all, because I sound nothing like that objectively speaking, and I'm pretty sure most Indians don't either. But I think the thing which ruined the reputation of the Indian accent the most are the outsourced call centers. Now I am telling you guys truthfully and on everything that I did not know what the phrase "do not redeem it" meant until I started YouTube and people started spamming it in my comments. And it also seems like a good majority of people who aren't chronically online didn't know what it meant either.
Can someone tell me what "do not redeem it" means? Like, I'm seeing all of these comments on NLE's new TikTok that he posted with Diljit, and all I'm seeing is "do not redeem it, do not redeem it." And look, even this guy saying "do not redeem it, what did I do, officer?" Clearly it's aimed at Diljit, and I can sense it's like some kind of racist comment. But why? Like, I'm so confused. And look, there's so many of them, like "do not redeem it" collab, NLE feat "do not redeem it." First of all, I don't know what that means. Second of all, that is definitely racist, obviously, but I'm just confused on why.
Listen, if you're going to come into my comments and comment this phrase, then keep doing it, because all you're doing is driving up my engagement and helping the video get seen by more people. And I'm sure your aim is to help a young Indian get paid, right? But if you don't know what "do not redeem it" means or where it comes from, then I'm pretty sure the origin is from this video by Kit Boga, where he's essentially infiltrating scam call centers in India. And one of the most famous clips from that video is where the scammer gets so angry to the point where he utters the infamous words do not redeem it. And the thing is, this clip came out 4 years ago. It's been 4 years and you guys are still out here talking about some do not redeem it. Yeah, you guys need to be a bit more creative with the racism, man. Switch it up a little bit. Now listen, I don't think it's a crazy take to say that scam call centers are bad, and it's not wrong to say that there are Indians out there who do scam, and it seems like there's a lot of them, but that's simply because there's a lot of Indians. And saying things like do not redeem it essentially singles out the whole group, and it's what's known as a stereotype. I mean, half the do not redeem it comments don't even make sense. How are you gonna comment that phrase on a post about Diljit? You're basically implying that Diljit, a mega famous singer, is a scammer. I mean, I know the man's concert prices are high, but I don't think calling him a scammer is justified. But all of these elements essentially show you the way in which the Indian accent is stigmatized and examples of where it's portrayed negatively. Now I'm gonna explain why this is important. Now it's not a secret that the way that you sound to other people is very important. I was in a conversation with a few people recently and they told me that if they watch a video on YouTube and they don't like the guy's voice, then they'll click off immediately, regardless of how good the video might be. So there is a bit of merit to that guy's comment which I showed earlier. And even outside of YouTube, accent discrimination is a pretty real thing. In the UK, where everyone speaks English, there's still forms of accent discrimination when it comes to getting a job or being in the corporate world. Studies have found that those with northern accents, so that's accents from people in areas like Liverpool and Manchester, face greater prejudice when it comes to the job market. That's because the people with northern accents are deemed to be less intelligent, less ambitious and less educated, compared to those who live in London and speak the Queen's English, for example. And you can basically take that same concept and apply it to the Indian accent. Doing a quick Reddit search, I think I found a few dozen posts about people being conscious of that accent and feeling the need to code switch. And code switching is when you have to switch up your accent depending on the situation. And there's nothing wrong with code switching. I mean, I personally do it all the time depending on who I'm speaking to. But it feels like based on what I'm reading online, Indians have to do it a bit more than any other group. And that's probably because of the way in which people view the Indian accent as funny and as a meme based on TV shows and what they see online, with the many depictions of an exaggerated Indian accent. And I've seen firsthand how the Indian accent has been mocked. So in my school, the majority of us were second-gen immigrants, and it was a somewhat diverse school to be fair, and the majority of us could speak English and we all had a British accent. And we had one guy come in who was new, who came straight from India, he was from Kerala, and he had a very distinct Indian accent. And everyone was like 13, 14 years old, so it was at that point in school where everyone was trying to roast each other, no matter what. So he was kind of doomed from the start. But to make things even worse, it was at the same time when Sketchers by Drip Report came out. And if you know about that song, then you know that it didn't really do any favors for the Indian accent or Indians in general. So yeah, he got it bad. But to be fair to that guy, he didn't really have any problems with it and he kind of filmed all the disses and violations. But that's also because I don't think he understood that he was being mocked. And it wasn't just other white and brown kids mocking him, but it was also other Indians who were born in the UK, which just doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, in my family, the majority of people I know do speak in an Indian accent when speaking English, despite living in this country for decades. So mocking him is basically like mocking one of your own, and it would just be weird to do that. And it kind of brings me onto the idea of the beef between the NRIs and the FOBs. Now listen, I was actually going to speak about this in a video on the many divides within the brown community and how divide and rule is still real in 2024. But based on reading the comments that I get, some people aren't mature enough for that video and aren't ready to have that conversation, so I had to postpone it. But I do want to make one thing clear. I don't think that impersonating an accent is wrong. It's the reason why we've seen videos go viral of people doing 20 accents at once, and certain accents have that sound which is cool to impersonate. And sometimes if the accent is done accurately, then you can appreciate it a bit more. I mean, I wouldn't care if someone mocked my British accent and tried to come through with the bottle of water jokes, but the problem is none of you can do a British accent properly, whereas us Brits can do North American accents with ease. I mean, if I pulled out my Toronto accent, then you really think I was up in Dundas Square with the Crowdies. But all jokes aside, I think that the problem that people have with the Indian accent being mocked is when you try and link it to a stereotype or say something like, do not redeem it, or I bet that accent smells like curry, because obviously that's linked to a negative connotation around Indians. And another problem which I think is much more pressing outside of the dumb stereotypes is the fact that these biases with the Indian accent are leading Indians to be viewed less favorably in the job market, meaning that hardworking Indians aren't able to get jobs. Business Insider actually conducted a study about about regional accents and their impacts on job interview outcomes, and they found that having a regionally Indian or South Asian accent can actually harm your chances in business related interviews. They analysed data from 22 individual studies comprising 3,615 participants. One was that applicants who communicated in a non-standard language were perceived to be less competent compared to their standard language speaking counterparts, even when the qualifications were identical. And this is a big issue, and it's why many Indians are conscious when going into interviews or even at work in situations where they have to speak English, because they're basically forced to code switch, and when they code switch is where they get mocked. So it's literally a cycle of discrimination just because of their accent. Now I made this video essentially to address that issue because I feel like I have seen it firsthand, even with people who I know who felt they were qualified enough but couldn't get a job just because of how they spoke. Now whether or not this is going to change in the future, I don't know, but I did kind of want to leave this video on a positive note and respond to that guy's comment properly. Now you might have seen those memes before where it's like, Indian tutorials are the best, or that Indian guy explains things so well, he doesn't talk nonsense, or that Indian tutorial helped me for my exam, that Indian guy solved this problem with my computer. Now I know that some people hate those tech support memes, but for me, I feel like those Indian tutorials are a very positive thing, and they're actually good PR for the Indian accent instead of the exaggerated stereotypes. Like, I know people specifically who only watch Indian tutorials to things because it does give you the best solution at the end, and this is a net positive because it means that more people will get used to the Indian accent and there won't be that stigma around it to the point where it gets mocked in real life. So to the guy who commented saying that his Indian accent would be a problem for his computer science content, just know that it won't be, because millions of people every day rely on Indian tutorials for their problems. And if your videos are good enough, then people will watch them regardless of the accent. But if you do need a voiceover, then you know where to find me. But what do you guys think? Is there a dilemma or a problem with the Indian accent? Is it viewed negatively or positively? Do you have any personal experience with having an Indian accent or being mocked for your accent? If so, then please share them and let me know in the comment section. And please share your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. Also, comment any topics or types of videos you guys want to see next, and please like the video to help the video's performance in the YouTube algorithm. And please also subscribe with notifications turned on because I am going to be uploading weekly. Safe.